I wanted to introduce Stephen. He has been dedicated to the field of early childhood learning and development since 1992. He's worked as a child care teacher, early Head Start educator, child care services specialist, home visitor, family advocate, and male engagement coordinator. Stephen is a 3-year member of the Alameda County Fathers Corps, where he has participated as a panelist for several workshops. And in 2017, Stephen participated in the Early Learning Lab's Parent Innovation Institute, where he led a team to successfully redesign a father's playgroup using a co-creation approach to design thinking. Stephen was invited to share his own experience with the Early Learning Lab at the 2018 Nation Center for Family Learning Conference in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and at the 2019 LEGO Idea Conference in Billund, Denmark. In 2019, Stephen was accepted to participate in an Alameda County Emerging Leaders Fellowship for Racial Equity and Systems Change, where he designed this welcoming father tool. Stephen is a single father of a teenage son and is currently the co-teacher and director of social justice and diversity curriculum at Rice and Beans Cooperative School. Stephen, we're so grateful for you and we're happy that you're here. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And there we go. Great. So welcome.
Are we ready?
We're ready. Take it away.
All right. Okay, well, good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for taking up the time to join us here today. I'm really excited. This is something that I have been laboring for so many years to get going, and this is actually the first time I'm being able to present on something that's so near and dear to my heart, that I'm so passionate about, which is creating environments to engage fathers and making fathers feel welcome into a program. And as you heard, I've been around for a while in the field, and I've been able to approach father engagement from so many angles, both as a father and as a professional in multi-levels in my career, from teacher to family advocate to childcare. Was a specialist helping families locate childcare who were in CalWorks, and so a lot of what was put into this tool is based on my experience and my relationships with fathers and families in general. So I'm going to get started, and I'm going to be looking to the slide because I have some slides here. If you could take me to the next slide, Beth.
Let's see. Here we
We're
go.
going to do a little warm up before we get started. Yep, there we go. And so our warm up is just in the chat box, let us know where you're joining us from. I was kind of looking at the pre-training survey, and I saw quite a few agencies I weren't familiar with. So where you join us from, and then if you have any habits that you want to share that you have developed during shelter in place, let us know. It's a fun way of getting us going, and obviously this picture says it all. One of the habits I picked up and that needs improvement is I need social distancing from my refrigerator. I've been eating quite a bit, but I have been walking a lot. Let's see. Oh, I see some familiar places here. I see Sacramento Office of Education. Go SCOE. I used to collaborate with SCOE. Wow, from Fremont, Lincoln. All righty. Through the Looking Glass. Hey, I collaborated with them. City of Oakland. Go on Oakland. My backyard. Walking and looking for a job. Okay. Diane. Hi, Stephen. Good morning from EBAC. Oh, Caroline. Hi. Wow, some familiar faces here. So, Caroline, this is not going to be new to you, girl. Just a few new things here. I kind of vamped it up a bit. All righty, Rebecca. Hello. Wow. So this is interesting. We've got people, look, new cooking habits. I see some walking. I see job searching. Yes, I think many of us are in that boat, right? Art, music and art. I mean, who can't go wrong with that? Oh, that's Aaron. Hi, Aaron. Aaron. Right on. So that's wonderful. I'm glad to see such a diverse group here. Unity Council. Go on, Unity Council. Um, Very near and dear to my heart, OUSD, right on. Wow. So I am enjoying the diverse group that we have here. Chabot College, right on. Eating much, yes, eating too much. I'm enjoying the club. I got to stay away from that pizza. But if you notice, there is some tomatoes on there. So it is quite healthy. But yes, so thank you so much. I mean, we have a big variety from all over. I'm so happy to see that. And we're not going to hold this up any longer. We're going to go ahead and move forward. So Beth, if you can change screens for me. And this is something special I really wanted to do because you know, and I don't want to come across as too political in this, but I do want to dedicate this presentation to fathers whose fatherhood journey was cut short by violence and injustice. And I'm sorry I do get choked up about this because my hope with this is that hopefully we can start looking beyond the politics of things and look at the heart of humanity and look at people as humans. And what goes on behind the scenes is that what we're not seeing is that these men were fathers and there are children left behind who are going to be struggling with the trauma of losing their father. So there's a lot of healing to be done in the role of fatherhood and, I mean, in the world of fatherhood as well as in child development and helping children overcome these traumatic experiences. So my heart goes out to every last one of these families who have endured this traumatic event. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with a little bit of the background on how I arrived at becoming, creating this tool. So Beth, if you can, next slide. Let's see. Oops, no, by the way, let's see. There we go. So, as you heard in my intro, I spent a lot of years working in Head Start, a program that is very near and dear to my heart. I began in Sacramento Employment and Training Agency back in the 90s as an early Head Start childcare teacher. And I was presented with this opportunity to participate in this new grant that was given to Head Start for fatherhood, the Fatherhood Initiative, which took me to both Oakland and Maryland to put forth this effort and a new mandate with Head Start to engage fathers. And at that time, it was still called involvement. And I want to touch on that a bit about involvement in that I don't focus, I try to stray away from the word involvement. We don't want to involve fathers. I believe in engagement. And there's a bit of a difference there for me in that I kind of refer to it as a relationship type thing where when you're involved, it's like when you're in a relationship and you're getting to know somebody, you're just talking to them, you're just seeing them. We're involved, but there's no sense of commitment. And I like to take the approach to take it up to the next step, put a ring on the finger, and let's move forward. You know, this is that commitment where, okay, remember, you know, you show that ring and it's like, hey, remember, we're committed to each other. We're in it together. And that's the direction I want to move fatherhood in and father engagement in, is that we want to move beyond than just handing out a flyer. We want to move on into a place where we're engaged, that there's a commitment to really get fathers engaged. And this is kind of what we went through in this training, where we got to see, got to go through an intense training around the barriers and the issues that fathers are facing that are prohibiting them from truly engaging in the lives of their children and in their education. And so the pivotal point to this was actually hearing from the fathers. And I think that is, if anything, that you get out of this training is, a takeaway is to really sit back and listen to fathers. You know, those of you who are joining us today, you've got this wonderful privilege of being the groundwork. You know, we have folks coming in, you know, we have doctors and academics and, you know, folks who are into that field, who are looking at it through an academic and a statistical standpoint, and creating these one-size-fits-all approaches to father engagement, that we on the ground level actually know what fathers need. We know what, we have the opportunity to engage them to find out what they need and really individualize and craft a plan and a method to engage them that's going to be so personal and effective. And it's not going to be a one-size-fits-all approach. And that was something I took away from this, that fathers are humans. And, you know, sometimes we get so caught up in a lot of that talk about like the baby daddy this and the baby daddy that. Oh, look at these young kids making babies. They're just making babies to make them, and then they want to abandon them, or dads don't matter in the lives of their kids. And it's something that repelled dads from really engaging, because they're already facing these stereotypes. And I think that when you get to hear it on a personal level from them, we get to see the human side of them, and we realize how important they are in the life of their child and how much they want to engage. I have not met a father yet who has not wanted to engage in their child's life or in their education. They all want it. All they need is an opportunity. And one of the biggest barriers that they faced was the stereotypes, and just using that as a way to stay away from fathers. And I got to see some amazing things with these young fathers who were engaging with their children that showed that human side and how important that father is in the role in the life of their children. So I'm going to take you to a slide. Some of you may have seen this video clip before. I will get a little emotional with it. I won't lie. It's a beautiful, beautiful demonstration on the importance of fathers and how much they really influence their child even prenatally. So Beth, if you can take me on to the next slide, and we can get the video going. Yeah.
Yo, comedian Michael Jr. here. As you know, I just flat out enjoy doing comedy. But one of the things I love way more than that is being a dad. Not too long ago, I'm going through some video footage, and I run into this video of my youngest daughter being born. Now, of course, I was there. I actually took the video, but I had never really experienced it from this perspective before. Now look, we're in the hospital room. She's sticky and she's baby and all that stuff, and she's in the middle of crying. And then I speak up. I start talking to her, and watch how she responds when she hears my voice.
It's okay, Portland. Look, I'm right here. It's okay. It's okay. I'm right here. I'm right here. We're doing just fine. It's okay. It's okay. I'm right here. Right here. Yeah. It's okay. It's okay, baby. It's okay.
That was pretty awesome. So check it. A few minutes later, the nurse starts working on her, puts her pamper on her, and I'm not saying anything, and she actually starts to cry again. Then I speak up, she hears my voice, and stops crying, like again. But I want you to notice what else happens after I tell her that I love her.
Portland, Portland, it's okay. It's okay. It's good. It's good. It's good. I'm right here. I'm right here. I am right here. I love you. I love you. I love you. Yeah, I'm right here. I'm right here. It's okay. It's okay.
That's just phenomenal. I'm like, whoa.
Okay, stop it right there. So, I mean, what better motivation to get fathers involved and engaged in this, and to really demonstrate the influence and the beauty that fathers bring into the life of their children. And I mean, this in itself, seeing this in person with fathers was like, there it is. We got to see the human side, and now this is going to push me forward. This was my motivation to really want to engage with fathers and get them to engage. So another important takeaway that I took from this, if we can move to the next screen, and this was a difficult one for me, is that I had to confront my demons, reconcile my relationship with my father. I'm sorry, I saw this little pop-up here. When I went through the trainings, the very first thing we did was we had to discuss our relationship with our fathers. And for many of us, that was a difficult thing. For me, it was extremely difficult. I grew up in a home with a father who was very abusive, who pretty much would say things that were very hurtful. He was an alcoholic, physically abusive. And I mean, I was just frustrated at this part of having to discuss my father. But what the point of that was that my relationship with my father influenced how I viewed and I interacted with other fathers. And in order for me to work effectively with fathers, I had to reconcile those things. Otherwise, that was going to be a barrier for me as a worker to be able to successfully work with fathers. And it was hard, and I'll tell you, in the middle of the training, I slammed down my books. I was like, look, I'm not here for a therapy session. I'm here to work with fathers. I come to learn. And they were like, well, this is part of the process. And I was like, no, it's not. This is not teaching me anything. Here I was in East Oakland, didn't know where I was. I just walked out of this building. I'm crying. I'm like, this is not what I came for. And they're chasing me down. They're like, come back, come back, come back. I was like, no, I'm not here for this. I'm here to work with fathers. And they were like, well, this is the point. If you can't move beyond this, you can't successfully work with fathers. And they took that opportunity to sit down and ask me, why was it so hard for me to sit through a discussion about my father? And here I am just opening up my heart, giving this opportunity to open up my heart and actually share what society had told me all along I could not address, that I was not free to share because I was a man, and men do not share their emotions. Men are to bottle it up, and it's just gushing forward. Here are boogies running down my face and tears all over the place, crying on some stranger's shoulder. But it was what I needed. It was a breakthrough I needed, and it led me into a process of reconciling my relationship with my father, who had passed away when I was 15. And through this healing process that I went through of reconciliation, I began to understand fatherhood and the dynamics so much more. And I remember playing a song by Madonna. It was called Oh Father. And there was this one verse that always got me that said, maybe someday when I look back, I'll be able to say, you didn't mean to be cruel. Somebody else hurt you too. And that was the aha moment for me, that my father was actually trying his best with what he was given. He had issues himself, and it was a cycle that we had been going through that needed to be broken. And I couldn't fully blame my father for everything in our relationship. I knew that there was some background that he had no control over. And it was pretty difficult to have to do that when that person isn't there. But it is possible to do it. So, if there's anybody out there who is struggling with that, I really encourage you to give it a shot. It's not easy. Find somebody who could listen to you and guide you through the emotions. But if you truly want to successfully work with fathers and be impactful, we have to be able to reconcile that. We got to separate our experience with our fathers or even with our spouse, and isolate that and recognize that that issue is between us and them, and we can't generalize everybody else. We have to look at fathers through a whole other lens, not through the lens of our experience, but getting to the heart of that person and getting to know them on an individual basis and a fair level where you're setting aside all those biases and assumptions and experiences, and try to break away from that and really see fathers as individuals. So if we can move over to the next slide. Because all of this wonderful information led to eventually in my experience, I became a father. Fatherhood happened to me, and it was the most beautiful process I went through. For those of you who know me know that my son and I are very close. My son is adopted. He was born of my heart. People like to tell me, oh, you don't know what fatherhood is like. You don't know what being a real parent is. Honey, yes, I did. My son and I went through, he came to me at 9 months old. And that period of time of waiting to adopt, that was my pregnancy. Every phone call I got from a social worker was my labor pains, that fear of losing my baby. And so that was the best thing that ever happened in my life, was to become a father. But becoming a father, I started to experience firsthand what all these dads have been telling me they experienced. Constantly, I was always asked, when I was enrolling him and what have you, where's mom? Can we speak to the mother of Nathan? Oh, you can't attend this training at 10 o'clock in the morning because you're working? Maybe mom can attend. And this mommy and me swimming lessons. I was wanting to teach my son how to swim, and all of these swimming classes at his age were by themselves, where I'm leaving them in the hands of a stranger. But there was this one where parents got to participate, and it was a mommy and me swimming class. And I called up the rec center, and I was like, hey, I was interested in this class. I wanted something interactive between me and my son where I could teach him how to swim. Since I'm fearful of water, I wanted him to do this. I want to get over my fear so I can allow him to learn to swim. And I got a lot of pushback talking about this is just for moms. And moms are not going to feel comfortable with you there. I also got... this is like the one I think most dads cringe when we hear this, and people see us in public with our children, is, oh, how sweet, you're babysitting for mom, giving her a break. No, honey, we're doing our job. We are being a parent. That is what we're doing. We're not doing a favor. We're actually doing our job. And all of this really motivated me to think, hey, I learned all this in these training, Partners for Fragile Families, and it's a reality, and I have to do something about this. So I really started pushing forward. I ended up joining the Fathers Corps by accident, and it was like another treasure to add to my treasure box, another tool to add to my toolkit to really enhance and get me thinking and motivated on how best to work with parents, with fathers in particularly. So then I moved around. I got a job at Unity Council as a home visitor and family advocate, and as well as they hired me to be a father engagement coordinator. And this was like a dream come true to me. And I was like, okay, so what do you want me to do? They're like, we just need you to engage fathers, to involve them. I don't know how, but just do it. And all these experiences and all these trainings came to me, and I came up with an idea. And Beth, if you can move me to the next slide. This was like my magic moment, because it allowed me the freedom to create something for fathers. So I decided, I was like, what better way to engage fathers than to bring them together with their children. So the idea was to create, these were some of the points that I wanted to highlight and wanted to encourage, which was, I wanted to honor and support fathers as caregiver, in the caregiver role as their child's first teacher. I wanted to increase father and male caregiver visibility and engagement in their early learning programs, to encourage more father and caregivers in leadership in early learning programs, and to have more visibility there, and to support children's cognitive and social and emotional growth. These were all the ideas I had to put into engaging fathers. This is what I wanted to create in this program. And so I developed a father's playgroup. I was like, how best can I do this? Let's have a playgroup for dads. And this was really fun, brainstorming it. I was like, okay, here I am. I know what fathers need. I'm going to throw this together. We're going to have these playgroups. And for 4 months that I ran these playgroups once a month, I only had 3 dads show up. And it was the same 3 dads every month. And their faces were so pitiful because it was like they did not want to be there. And it was just so disturbing. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. You know, all this stuff that dads, you know, that I'm hearing that dads want, and it's not working. All I get is 3 dads and they're not interested. And then I had what I call my happy accident, which was our agency, the Unity Council, was reached out to by the Early Learning Lab. They were piloting a program called the Parent Innovation Institute, which helped identify problems in getting kids kindergarten ready, so by co-creating with families through a design thinking process on creative solutions to go ahead and move forward and increase family engagement. So that was my happy accident, because I wasn't supposed to be the person attending this meeting and this training. I was just selected in there at the last minute, and it was truly a blessing. So Beth, if you can move to the next slide, please. Let's see, here we go. And so you see the little seahorse there, there's a reason behind that. What we did was we used the method of design thinking, a co-creation, solution-based approach to engage families, and this was put on through the Early Learning Lab, the Parent Innovation Institute, where we identify that problem. And some of you got to see the video that was sent out yesterday that kind of talked about the approach we took. It was this super fast, rapid cycle approach to identifying a problem, steps to take to further identify the problem, to see what's at the root of it, and then to be able to create a prototype of something that's going to help increase engagement, and then try it out. You'll see that in the next slide, but I want to point out the little seahorse here. The seahorse has been my mascot all along. For those of you who follow nature and those of you who don't, I will fill you in on this. We know that the male seahorse is one of the few animals in the world who carries the fertilized eggs. They are the ones who are pregnant, and they are the ones who give birth to the babies. It's the male. And so I had this vision of creating a generation of fathers, birthing a generation of fathers who are going to be nurturers and caretakers of their children. And this was my vision, and this is what I set out to do through this play group, that we were going to go ahead and brainstorm to see how best we can help this grow and be impactful. Next slide, please. So as you remember the seahorse. And there's a wonderful book by Eric Carle, Mr. Seahorse, that really tells the story so well. Okay, so can we move to the next slide? There we go. So what we did through the co-creation rapid cycle was we identified that problem that we wanted to solve, and in this case was how do we increase participation? And we did that by interviewing and observations. And so I, in my team, had the task identifying fathers within our program and finding out what were the barriers that were stopping them. So random fathers, and you know, the minute we gave fathers an opportunity to start talking about it, that we sent them that message that they were valid, that they were important, that we wanted to hear from them. And that made a difference, because that's an approach that they don't often get in programs generally. They, you know, it's more like sign them in and go. And so there doesn't seem to be an investment in trying to establish a relationship with them and getting on a personal level to see who they are and what it is, you know, that they're looking for in a program. And this was amazing because we had to do these interviews in pairs, and you're going to see later on something pop up in there that led to me having to exclude my partner in the interview in order to really reach the fathers, because my partner was a female and they didn't want to open up to them. And so when I gave them that privacy and respected that privacy, honored that, they were opening up at a level that I hadn't seen. And I'm talking about grown men crying about how much they want to engage with their children and what these barriers were. And we'll address those in a second. So after we get that and we do observations, and I got some pretty clear observations, we did a little researching to kind of validate what we were seeing, and then we designed this prototype. We tested it out, and our test was hilarious. It was the most wonderful test we did to get it out there. We had this huge block party, which was amazing. And during this testing of the prototype, we were constantly listening to feedback to kind of build upon it and improve this design that we were doing. So we go back to redesigning, and then we try it again. And next slide, please. Let's see. There we go. This is where the magic happened. So this was amazing. So this is, I'm just giving you a few of the things that we discovered through our inquiries, of trying to figure out why fathers weren't attending, why they weren't engaging. And this little picture on the side, I selected that. All the pictures, by the way, that you see here of dads are actually from my playgroup. But this one actually kind of illustrated what these dads were describing to me as their number one issue. The number one barrier we discovered across the board with all the fathers that we interviewed was that mom was being a gatekeeper. Mom was controlling how far dad can engage. And it also played in with the hours, the work hours. And there was various reasons why mom was gatekeeping. And with the dads that we were interviewing and we were focusing on, they were like, you know, moms just don't want us there. And when we talked to mom, because that led to another part, we had to talk to mom now that we identified that mom was the barrier. Moms were like, well, why do dads have to have their own thing? Why is it dads only? What about us? We don't get nothing. Why do they get a reward? And it wasn't about a reward. A lot of them didn't trust the fathers to take care of kids. You know, I remember interviewing one of the families I did my home visit with, and she's telling me about, you know, her relationship with the father. And she's like, oh my gosh, I'm home all day and I just need a break and I need him to kick in and do something. And that was part of our plan. Okay, how are we going to get dad engaged in this? And so she allowed him some time to bathe him and, the kids and feed them. And she reported back to me and she's like, oh my gosh, I just left him with a simple task of giving the kids a bath, putting their diapers on and feeding them. And here comes my baby with shampoo in his hair and diapers all crooked. And he's giving him some, no. You know what? If that's what it's going to be, I'm just going to have to do, just let me do it. Leave me alone. And then I asked her what happened next. She was like, and then he goes and sits in front of the TV and watches the soccer game. And he wouldn't talk after that. And so we kind of picked that apart to kind of look at it, dissect it a little bit and kind of see the big picture. And she was like, oh, I pushed him away. I can't believe I did that to him. He did what I asked him to, but it wasn't good enough for me. And that was her aha moment. So that was the thing we needed to address, is how we work around that with moms. And then some of them felt that the dads were going out to check in on the teachers because we had these young female teachers. They were like, ellos se van a mirar a la vieja. That's all they're going for. And then their other complaint was money. They were like, they're putting money and sports over their kids. So we had to work with that. So that was one of our barriers that we had to dissect. So we actually had to go out and talk to moms as well. Finances, they had to work, and a lot of these dads were day laborers, so they spent their days in a parking lot waiting for work to come to, for somebody to hire them, and they're working long hours, they're working multiple jobs just to support their family, and they would share as well that they didn't have the finances to do anything with their kids. Another one of the barriers were the cultural norms and values, the roles around fathers of having to be the providers, the financial provider of their families. And that dads, their role was to discipline, and their roles, it was just so, there were so many layers to that, and having to adjust to the American way of living, the American family structure. There was a lot of culture clashing there. And then, of course, there was the unwelcoming early learning programs where teachers were not friendly to fathers, and this came clear to us through an observation that we made. I had the two parents who were working with us co-creating stand out in our lobby and observe interactions, and they were even blown away by what they witnessed. Not very friendly at all for fathers. So here was our solutions. We got together, we identified them, we created this family community resource night at the beginning of the school year to kickstart our program, where it was a big block party, gave the families time to come together. Moms were like, why dads only? Okay, well, let's bring you together with dad. Let's have this family event. And we brought resources in for them to see what was going to be available to them. And if anybody's been to the Colores Head Start with Unity Council, they know that rooftop playground is awesome. And I mean, it was just so nice at evening, free food. There was, resources. We had raffles. They enjoyed it. And that was my opportunity as one of the resources was to offer them, hey, look, I'm starting this father's play group. And I had both parents there on the spot. And I got to introduce it to them. And then part of what we did is we created a daddy's promise that when dad comes in, he signs this promise that he could take home to him and address every one of the concerns that the mothers brought up. And I wasn't able to share that, but I will try to get that out if anybody's interested. We have it in English and Spanish. Dad's got to sign it. It was laminated. They got to take it home, with a lot of pride. And in the same process, for those moms who didn't trust the dads, we created a mother's waiting group that while dads were upstairs in the playground and in the play group, moms were downstairs having mommy time. And they enjoyed that. This was a creation of one of our parents who came up with that. Mom didn't have to worry about being too far from dad taking care of the kids, or she could keep an eye and make sure he's not checking out the girls, but none of the moms came up. They enjoyed themselves. We looked at our scheduling. We did this on a weekend, Saturdays. And after our events, we took a culturally respectful approach. We honored the values of the fathers and the community we were in. One of the beautiful things that came out of this too was a collaboration with local agencies and companies. Dads needed services. They identified what they wanted. Some of our dads were like, we need a stable job. And so guess what? One of our play groups we designed around building. And I invited the Home Depot to come out and lead a building project with dad and their kids. And in the same time, they were handing out flyers about job announcements. And so many of our parents, our fathers, ended up working for the Home Depot out of this. So it's like this huge approach to everything. And, these dads were just so grateful for this. And we did theme play groups with activities. That can be duplicated at home. Money was a big issue. So many of the activities that I set up in the play group were things used at home that the fathers can have access to if they wanted to engage in early learning. So it's kind of like, look, this is something you can do. You may not be able to go out or buy the most expensive toys, but these are the treasures you have in your house, and this is how you can use them. And the dads really appreciated that. We had a little shopping session where they cut out pictures from the secular ads you get in your in the mail all the time that plug up your mailbox, and we used them to make shopping lists, and the kids got to shop. So just different things that they can do. It was just a really wonderful experience. And it also led to staff training. We had to really, we had the opportunity, at least in the home visiting program, to get the home visitors to recognize some of those assumptions and biases they had, and they were bringing in most of the time unintentionally, based on their former relationships and experiences, and how to overcome that. So this is what happens when you really, you stop looking at the one-size-fits-all approach, from the academic standpoint and statistical standpoint, and really do the groundwork of engaging with the fathers and really thinking creatively on solutions, on getting them engaged. And it really all started with that building, with the building of the trusting relationships with fathers and letting them know you have a genuine interest in them. So I think we can move to the next slide, because this was the beauty. This is like my pride and joy coming in. Because we went from those 3 dads who were dragged into this play group to 30 dads at a play group. at a time. And this was just amazing that these dads, I mean, our play group started at a certain time. They were there like a half hour before, ready to get in there. And they were there for the full 2.5 hours. The moms were okay with it because the moms knew that they were eating healthy. That was one of the issues. I had snacks there. They were healthy snacks. We even did a play group around eating, about, cooking healthy snacks and what have you. Next slide. Just a few more pictures. So yes, this was amazing. And the trusting relationships that I built with these dads as well, where they looked up to me, was incredible. I mean, and there I am doing a story time. One of the things dads identified was that they didn't know how to read. I was like, guess what? Your babies don't either. Read pictures. And I demonstrated that in a circle time, and the dads built, they felt confident in doing that. So next slide, please. So the next slide is going to show you some other things that came out of it, and I don't want to keep talking too much. I want you guys to get your hands on this tool that I created. So aside from going from 3 to 30, staff and parents noticed that ever since fathers started engaging, children whose fathers or male caregivers participated exhibited positive behaviors. And I don't think that the children were actually behaving better. I think that once the teachers got to establish that relationship with the dad, they got to see the children through a whole different lens, and those things that bothered them so much they picked on weren't a problem anymore. I think that relationship kind of did away with that assumption or that bias. Children who had speech IFSPs and IEPs, their vocabulary was like, bam, it was increasing. More fathers were dropping off and picking up their children, which was something we hadn't seen before. We had more fathers attending meetings because we started being flexible with these schedules and letting dads know, we want you here. Your voice is important. So let's get you here. So we had to make some adjustments. Fathers being caregivers, male caregivers who were being employed, who had stable employment. And this made mom happy because guess what? He's home more, there's more money, there's more engagement. And we got to see a better relationship with children, with fathers with their children, with the other parent, and with teachers. So this was incredible. All the power of relationship, that genuine interest in wanting to get to know dad and crafting something that says, you're welcome here and we're here for you. We want to be your partners. We want to put you in the driver's seat. We're not going to be the driver anymore. We're putting you in the driver's seat. You are going to guide us. You're the ones who are going to lead us to what it is that you need and to help you bring down these barriers so that you can engage. So these were some amazing outcomes that came up out of all of this as well that we weren't looking into, which was quite amazing. I was really excited. Next slide, please. I see a Mitchell up there. Somebody talking to Mitchell. I hope that's Mitchell Ha. It is. I took your class. Love his class. Excellent. No, back one. There we go. So then there was also, there was supposed to be a picture here. Sorry about that. Some program changes that we made based on what we learned was that we began to encourage father participation during the intake or the enrollment process. That was a step for us. We weren't doing that. There was no emphasis. But out of hearing fathers, we saw that was like, boom, that was something that needed to happen. We changed our home visiting forms to include fathers, to include services that they need, and for activities for dads who weren't able to participate. They were like, I want to do this with my kid. How can, so we left activities, we left things for them, ideas for them to do. We changed family meeting times. This was like amazing, it was pivotal to get fathers to engage. I personally did separate home visits with fathers, who weren't there. One of my dads, and we're still close to this day, worked right down the block from my office. And I was like, I'm working with your kid. I ran into him in front of his job. I'm like, hey, there you go. Oh, I'm your child's home visitor and your family's home visitors. And I was told that I could run into you here, and here you are. We started talking. I was like, you know what? I know you want to be engaged. And we worked so close, how about we try something out? How can we have a visit just with you? And so what we decided on was once a month, I would meet him on his lunch break. And we did a home visit there. And that was pivotal for him. It changed his life because it gave him not only an outlet to express his concerns for his families and his desires, but then he got to get a little more personal with some of his, he was facing a physical illness and he didn't know how to handle it and what steps to take or resources. So we were able to help him in that aspect, and that just changed their whole family dynamic. And then we started planning evening socializations. It never took, flight, but it was an idea. How do we get dads to socializations? So if you're a home visitor, we have these socializations that we have to put together, and it's usually moms. And we wanted to do an evening one to get dads there. And they decided to implement a circle of security for fathers, a father support group. And now the one that I really want to address here, which I know, and I was looking at some of the things that were written in the pre-training survey, was about, like a lot of engagement. I think one of the barriers that we found coming from the institutional level was the policing. Most of our programs were federally, are funded, they're subsidized programs, and dads are afraid of showing up, and moms are afraid of letting dads pick up or drop off, because it's like teachers were like in their face and like, oh, we see dad is in the picture. Oh, I'm going to go report this. He's not supposed to be there. This is subsidized care. So it set that fear into families. So it's like, Dad, you better stay home. Don't you show your face. So part of that training that we did was talking about that policing, that just because a father is there doesn't mean that he's living in the home. We have to respect families and take their word at it. We're not the police. And, this is government money. It's not coming out of our pocket. We have to look at what benefits the child is getting from having that drop off and pick up and coming to a meeting. It doesn't have to revolve around finances. And if you're worried about them cheating the system, guess what? We live in the Bay Area. A family of two making $80,000, $90,000 a year can't survive. We need services. And so it's like, come on, y'all. Thank you, Beth, for moving me on. So, so what was the magic formula? What happened was people were asking me, hey, I want you to do this over here. We want to do exactly what you're doing at your program over here and over there. And the thing was, they wanted to reduplicate that. I couldn't, because this was individualized to our families. This was individualized and crafted around our community and their needs, their own culture there. So it was really difficult. So I started coming up with something to kind of give them a guideline of things that they can look at in their programs to start encouraging father engagement. Next slide, please. Because then I had a wonderful opportunity. I was selected to join the Alameda County, here we go, Alameda County Emerging Leaders Fellowship for Racial Equity and Systems Change in Early Learning. And we wanted to address systemic racism and racial inequity in early learning, which is a huge problem. And we were given the task of creating a presentation, creating something to disrupt systemic racism in early learning. And so one of the things I wanted to address was the disproportionate rate of expulsion and suspension of boys of color in early learning, which is a real problem. People are like, really? Expulsion from preschool and from infant toddler programs? Is that a thing? Yes, it is a thing. And it is really impacting the community of color. So I was thinking about how best to address that. So can we move to the next slide, please? And so I did want to, address the problem of children of color, and these are some of the things, with the high suspension rate, expulsion rate among boys of color for what were considered behavioral concerns. I also wanted to address the 30 million word gap that existed between the poorest and the wealthiest of families, and then as well as children of color of low-income communities tend to be less ready to enter kindergarten than children of higher income communities. So I wanted to address that. Next slide, please. And so I decided that maybe based on what I had learned and I had experience with engaging fathers, is that perhaps if we can increase father engagement based on what I experienced in my program, how teachers changed the way they saw children. When I said that children behave better, and I don't think it was that they changed that behavior. I think what we saw was that teachers actually got to see the heart of the father. They got to meet the father, get to know him, and now that they built that relationship, they were kind of blinded to what they considered bad behavior. And so these were some of the benefits of having the fathers engaged that how I wanted to address it through father engagement. Children tend to be able to regulate, with a dad's engagement, they're able to regulate their emotions better and are less likely to engage in aggressive behaviors. Children tend to experience an increase in vocabulary, two things that we notice in our findings from this play group and from our studies. And children tend to perform better in English and in math by the ages of 10 and 11. All things that we saw by engaging fathers in our play group, by really taking the time to invest in them and getting to know them. So I crafted what I call the Welcoming Fathers tool. Next slide, please. And the way I did this was part of what I was doing with people who wanted to recreate my play group. I gave them kind of things to look for, like things to screen your program, to see if you're really sending out the message to fathers that you are welcome here. And so this is what I did. I started compiling a lot of those things together, and I broke it down into 3 parts. And this is great because anybody can use this. It's a check-off thing. You go down the list and you check it off, and then after you check off your response to a question, and I updated the form, so you guys will be getting an updated form on it where, it gives you an opportunity to think, why is this a problem? How can I? What are my next steps? And give yourself a timeline. So these are the 3 areas that I chose to focus them in on. So there's exploring relationships and assumptions on how we're engaging with fathers. Exploring programs, environment, are we setting up an environment that's welcoming to fathers, and as well as exploring policies and procedures. And we can move to the next slide. And so this was the goal of what I'm trying to achieve with this tool that I'm trying to get out there. Because my goal is, I'm sorry, I skipped ahead. So this is a sample of what it looks like, and I recreated it again. I did it on a Google Doc. It was beautiful. I had to do it on a whole other program now. It doesn't look quite as pretty, but this is kind of it, and I color coded it as well. So it's like questions like this. There's some lines inserted now where you're reading the questions and you're kind of reflecting on it, just kind of playing with the idea of why is, if it is a problem, why do I think it's a problem? What can I do next? What are my next steps? And then give yourself a timeline. Timelines are so important. We have to get to it. Otherwise, it will never happen. So this is kind of what it looks like. In a little while, I'm going to give you an opportunity to kind of explore this tool and see how it works for you. Next slide, please. So this is my goal. So my goal with it is to provide an opportunity for programs and families to become co-creators in taking steps towards engaging fathers in the early learning programs or whatever kind of program that you are actually working in that you really want to engage fathers. And when I say co-creation, I want to really emphasize that as you're looking at your program and looking at your findings, this is your opportunity. And this is what I want to, how I created this tool to work, is that then you go into the process of engaging fathers, starting to talk to them, be genuine with them, and be like, hey, just simple questions. Even like when, you may notice that when they're coming into your program, you're not really greeting them the same, or you have a little fear. It's like, how do I do this? And start establishing those relationships. And little things in there that will give you clues when you look at the tool. There's going to be little things in there that are going to give you an idea of, oh, this is what I can do, and this may make that feel more welcome and safe here. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next slide, because this is the part where, let's see, breakouts, our small group breakout sessions. So I've given Beth a few questions from my tool that I created. And in your small groups, it's just like 2 questions. And if you can't get to both of them, that's fine. But it's about looking at those questions, answering them, and kind of talking about them, you know, in your experience with your program. And in that little small group, maybe you can come up with creative ways of addressing it. So this is going to give you a little taste of how the tool works. And I'm going to turn you over to Beth with that.
So we're at our time. I just we're at our time. And I know that other people, that there's lots of questions. So for people that want to, we can spend a few more minutes if you have them, Stephen, to answer questions. But if people do need to leave, then please complete your.
I don't hold it against you.
And people are asking about receiving the toolkit.
Yes.
And so they will receive the toolkit. That's great. Okay.
I've given permission to First 5 to share it with participants. And what I ask with the toolkit is that you just use it for yourself and not distribute it out to other programs and stuff. You know, I really want to kind of just keep it amongst us. And this is something new. This is something I'm trying to build upon. And, you know, and just get information, see how helpful it is, and see if I could move it forward. So you will be getting a copy of that. And, you know, when you use it, please feel free to let me know if it worked for you, if it didn't, or if there's something that could have been done differently on there.
Yes, and I'm seeing some people saying some things about training follow-up. Please put that in your evaluation.
Yes, please.
We need to have a part 2 or have a discussion where we have someone, we have a little panel discussion about how to engage moms or women in a classroom to help them encourage, like having them watch that video that we watched today. So yeah, so I think Stephen, we'll end here, but we'll be available for a few more minutes if you wanted to, if you have it, Stephen, to answer some questions.
And then on the last slide, I put an email address where if people have, you know, individual questions that they may not want to ask of me, feel free to contact me there as well.
There it is. That's a great photo.
Yes, that was when I went to Denmark. I was in Legoland. That was so much fun. It was quite an honor to be there. But so for Romilly, I think to really quickly address your concern about the fear of having men in the program, I think a lot from my experience, especially from being a male teacher, care provider, I think it's the anxieties that maybe even the program themselves project. If the workers at the location don't feel comfortable, they're going to set off that vibe, and it's going to make people feel more suspicious about having a male. So I think it's about really kind of reflecting on what message you're sending out about males and how you're projecting it as a program, and really embracing the value and the importance of having that male there. And when, you know, because that's infectious. When you show that excitement and you show that passion, it's infectious where parents are going to be like, okay, maybe I'll give it a try. So most definitely.
Oh, we did have a very active male engagement program at Head Start. But the thing is, some of the parents, there are some prejudices against male presence in the classroom. That's why I need a follow-up on this, and also the legal challenges to this, because they're questioning, do you have a background check or fingerprinting of your male volunteers like they do in the elementary schools? That I cannot answer, and that I'm not sure how to answer.
And that's something you can refer to community care licensing and what the regulations are. That not just anybody can join in, you know, be a part. I know at least in Alameda County, families have to go through certain things before they can be a volunteer in the classroom. There are some processes that we're not allowed to have them volunteer unless we have these things in place. And I think using that as a platform really does help.
Right. Well, I think we're going to have that be our last question.
Yes.
I want to thank you so much, Stephen, for being here. And
No problem. Thank you all.
Please, we put Stephen's email in the chat. It is playgroup@gmail.com.
Yeah.
That's right there if you wanted to contact Stephen. And we will be sending that out to you as well in the email. So thank you so much.